you're now involved in a murder at that point. Is this the first time you've ever been involved in a murder?
Well, it's not. It's the first time I was personally at a murder scene and involved hands-on in a murder. But prior to that, I knew of upcoming murders and I knew of people that were about to be murdered. And but I didn't participate in them or have any discussions about how it was going to take place. But I knew, like Danny, Irish Danny, I knew he was going to get killed way before he got killed. Like actually the week he got killed, we took him for dinner knowing that in 3 days he was going to get killed. So, it was just a crazy way to live, because we would wine and dine people and knowing that, their life was going to come to an end in a couple of days. I mean, that's how it was. That's the world we were living in.
Well, how did that affect you, emotionally? Like, okay, yeah, you knew about other murders, but here you are in the vicinity of a guy that, you don't like, obviously, because he beat up your mother, but boom, he's gone. And now you're involved in it.
Right. At the time, honestly, it didn't even faze me. It was just part of what we did. Like in the mob, they consider murders work. They called it work. Like my father would tell me, hey, that guy Vlad, he did a lot of work. So that to me meant that he did killings. Or that guy's a good guy. That kid's a real good kid. That means that kid did murders. So they think murdering, if you're capable of doing a hit, you're a good guy. That's work. So at the time when it happened, when I think back at it, it really didn't faze me because first of all, I didn't like him and I knew he was dangerous and I felt he was a threat to my family and it didn't even faze me. When I was driving there, because my job was really the hard part because I had to get him there. So I had to be really calm and collective and cool about it because any little thing he would have known because he was a sharp kid. So I had to be very careful with him and not tip our hand. So when I picked him up, I wasn't nervous at all. I was calm and we were talking, we were laughing and I drove him there. But when I walked into the door with him, that's when I got nervous. I got a little nervous at that point when I walked in the door with him. And then everything transpired and then I was still a little nervous. And then when I left, and then I got nervous again later on in the night when my sister called me. I was a little rattled a little bit when she called me because I knew then I would have to go to her house and his family was there. And then I would have to put on another show and, start, lying about what's going on. Like, I don't know where he is. I dropped him off by the phone booth. He made a phone call. So had to go get picked up by somebody. And I had to come up with this whole big scheme, this whole big plan. So, but it didn't faze me. After that, it didn't even faze me. Later on, now today, I feel guilty. It comes and goes, comes in waves. I feel bad for his family. I feel bad for my sister, my niece. But at the time, it was just something we did.
Well, years later, when your sister finally found out what happened to her husband and, the father of they had one child together, right?
Yes.
And, she understands the life that she's in and so forth, but ultimately you're involved in the killing of her husband. Yeah, he beat up, your mom and everything else like that, but that's still her husband. She was still with him. Did she ever confront you about that?
Well, she never, she probably had a feeling it was us, but she never really knew for sure it was us. But when I finally decided to cooperate with the government, what I did was before they took me, I made them bring me to my mother's house and I told her and my mother the truth about what happened. And then she confronted me that day. She started screaming at me and, like, how could you just do this to me? And, she confronted me that day. But up to that point, I don't know if she was probably, I would say, in denial of that me and my father had anything to do with it. But then when I did cooperate, I went to make an amends to her and I wanted them to know the truth. And I told my mother and her the truth. And my mother, she just looked at me and she just shook her head and she says to me, I can't believe that your father, made you do things like that. She was very upset about it. She goes, I can't believe your father made you do things like that. And that was it, and I left.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the interesting thing, when I talk to all the ex-mob guys, from the Michael Franzises to everyone else I talk to, they all say the same thing, and that is that when it comes to hits in the mafia, they're never paid for.
No.
You know, you go to like, you know, you see like the Crips and the Bloods and, you know, other gangs, someone will put a price on someone's head and someone will collect on that. But when it comes to the mafia, there's no money that changes hands.
No, it's part of the job. That's why they call it work. My father told me when he was a kid, Albert Anastasia used to send for him and give him a gun and a pair of gloves and point him in a direction where he should go kill somebody, and he never got 10 cents. No, it's not part. It's just you know, the boss is the boss is the boss, and whatever he says, you do. You know, that's part of the game. There's no. I mean, you can make money, don't get me wrong. I mean, you know, have people clipped and take over their businesses or in their companies. So there is money to be made, but you're not going to get paid for the hit. But there is money that could be made. If I kill somebody and then if he has a big Shylock business or he has a big number business or whatever, and I take over his business, I'm going to make money over his debt, but I'm not going to get paid for it.
Right.
If that makes sense.